sent out to the sun. Escape from brainwashed minds and pollution. Leave the earth to all its sin and hate. Find another world where freedom waits. Past stars and fields of ancient void, through the shields of darkness where they find love upon a land, a world unknown, where the sons of freedom make their home. Leave the earth to Satan and his slaves, lead them to the future and their graves. Make a home where love is there to stay, peace and happiness in every day. Alright, hey, welcome to Operation End Times. I'm your Jedi warrior for Jesus, Bent Hellestead, and welcome to MINDFAST 811, Into the Void, Part 1. Today is August 1st, the first day of August. You know, on the Mazzaroth, the Zodiac. It's the sign of Leo, the lion. What you were just listening to was Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, Into the Void. And that's kind of where we're going to go with MINDFAST, is Into the Void. You know, 8/11 is only 10 days away. You know, what we're going to try and do is set the stage. Make the path straight to prepare the way, your mind, body, and spirit. And what we're going to prepare your mind for is to go into the void. Because it's scary in the darkness, man, if you don't know what you're doing. And I'll tell you what. We don't know what we're doing, you know. So when you go into the void, you better have a pretty good relationship with God and Jesus Christ, because that is the only way that you're going to get back out of that void. And guess what? We're born in the void. We're born in the pit, the darkness. Now, you know, darkness in and of itself is not evil. But in the Bible, there's a lot of words for the darkness, the pit, the abyss. Evil absolutely likes to hide in the shadows, to hide in the darkness. But here's the truth. Evil cannot hide in the darkness. God can even see into the blackest parts of the abyss. And evil sometimes can present itself as light and will even walk in the light. But it's still evil. But the glory of God and the kingdom is both light and dark. And in order to have a fullness of understanding and to have a relationship to be wed to God, you need to understand the darkness, and you need to be able to make it through the darkness, into it and out, through the valley of death. Um, 8 times 11 is 88. 88 is the it's a master number. Let's see if I can get to this real quick. Put a bookmark on this. There we go. But 88, you know, I don't get that caught up in numbers, but you know, they kind of mean things. So I'm just going to touch on 88 in and of itself. 88, 888, or 8888 As above, so below and within. This configuration gives you the infinite portal, escorting you past all previous limitations. It is a number of going beyond what you know to be your normal boundaries. It asks you to fly to the moon and to stop by the Milky Way on your way back. It is pure spiritual atomic energy, a pure power source. It is success, prosperity, and big business with the added flavor of universal blessing. It is finally remembering about your divine inheritance promised to you by your holy Creator. It is turning your nose up at earthly limitations and walking forward and upward into a place of opulence and bounty, which is the kingdom of God, my friends. So, I'm going to touch on a whole bunch of stuff. Part 1 here, we'll just have to go with it, go with the flow. On 8/11, I was just looking at a few things. Mercury, the light bearer, is going to be in Cancer, which is known as the dark constellation. There's all these movies coming out this year, too, out of Hollywood. Thor, the Avengers, with all the same theme. Darkness is coming. The Darkness, the new Star Trek movie. And, what I was going to say is, God is both light and dark. That's the crazy part. On a spiritual level, when God puts his foot down on earth, there is it's the secret place, a super huge dark void, and you got to be able to traverse through that to get to the light on the other side. But I noticed Mars and Jupiter are in Pollux and Castor. Mars is war, Jupiter is like a higher ascension, Venus and Saturn are in Virgo. 8/11, of course, is 30 days prior to 9/11. And 9/11, of course, that was when we had the disaster in New York City, but some people believe 9/11 is also the birth date of Christ. So that's just kind of what's happening in the stars. I was just checking the internet. There was all sorts of organizations out there. There's a guy by the name of Jack Canfield. And it's amazing because I'm going to talk about the MINDFAST or the minefield. That's where the Battle of Armageddon is being fought, my friends. Your mind has to be prepared, otherwise you're going to get wiped out fast. But MINDFAST is preparing the minefield, the battlefield. Jack Canfield, on 8/11, he's having a retreat to Bali, a beachfront exotic island, to create the life you've always wanted. Bali, the Bel, Belal, Balaam, the shadow. Give you everything you desire and lust for. There's another website called The Renew All, a newthoughtconference.com. Faith Lift, Strategies for Successful Living, all happening on 8/11. The Enlightenment Center is having a fair, which costs $35. And, that's one way you can kind of tell, if there's an 8/11 event that's more of a shadow, a darkness thing, where it's promoting self-will, ye are gods, rise your own spirit up. They'll usually be charging money, whereas God's into free. So MINDFAST is free. Doesn't even cost 1 penny, man. Just got to put some time and effort into it. There's another website called the 12-Ray Mystery School. It's a pagan site. On 8/11, they're having Power Week, a teacher's program, and it costs a ton of money. There's the Center for Spiritual Living in California, which is having the Undo It Yourself seminar. Once again, it probably costs some money, but MINDFAST is free. But I'm just showing you, there's already people and organizations out there, both light and dark, that are looking at 8/11 as some kind of progression of the manifestations and the spiritual growth paths, and it's whether you're walking a light path up or a shadow path down into the abyss, The pit is mentioned 88 times in the Bible, in 80 verses. Hebrews 9:5-3, Bowr, B-O-W-R, means a well or a cistern. Hebrews 75:85, Sheol, it's almost a form of she, for some women, or for some reason, women, they're the ones that are cast out, cast down, put away, put into bondage. Hell ain't a bad place to be with all the women that are down there, right? No, that's a big lie. The root for Sheol is Hebrews 75:92. To beg, to ask for, to seek. And I'm thinking that's forgiveness. Back to Sheol, it's a place of no return, a place without God. And I'm going to tell you, my friends, there's only one way out of there if you're there, and that's through Jesus Christ. He's the gatekeeper. Yeah, Hebrews 63:54, Pachath, P-A-C-H-A-T-H. It's the path of hard knocks, the pit, the hole, the snare. And I tell you what, Pakath, I may not be saying it right, but you can actually split it into two words. It's the achy path. That's why it's the school of hard knocks. If you're on the shadow path, you're going to be in for a rough ride. Hebrews 78:45, Shekath, the pit, the grave, a pit used for catching lions. From the root 77:43, to sink down, to be humbled, depression of the minefield. To be caught in the mire, the quagmire, stuck in the mud. There's Hebrews 78:82, which has 88 in the center of it. Shricha, the pit. Root 77:45, Shumcha, the pit or the ditch. 78:16, Sheshwath. And I'm not pronouncing these right. I don't know. I'm not an expert in Hebrew. I'm just giving you the numbers. You can look them up yourself in the Hebrew Bible. But the root is 78:12, to bow down. Shekach, 14:75 is Gumatz, the pit. 13:60 is Gebe, the pool, the cistern. And then there's another phrase that's used in the Bible, which is the bottomless pit. And bottomless is a phrase that is used 7 times. So that tells you right there, it's spiritual. The bottomless pit is for those who do not have a relationship with God, that do not honor and worship and acknowledge Jesus Christ as the only begotten Son of God. Where the wicked go, the bottomless pit. But it's mentioned 7 times. Darkness is mentioned 162 times, 62, number of judgment. Numbers 16:30. I've heard the phrase, "there's nothing new under the sun," but Numbers 16:30 says, "The Lord will make a new thing." And then it says, a pit opens up and swallows up the wicked. 12:78, Beria. A new thing. Psalms 88. We're going to just read a little bit of scriptures here. Bear with me. I decided to just go ahead and get this out there. And it's huge, this whole thing. It's hard to get your mind wrapped around it all. But Psalm 88, it's kind of mind-blowing. Starting with verse 4, it says, verse 2, "Let my prayer come before thee, incline thy ear unto my cry." Why? He's in the pit. He's crying out to God. And, I'm going to stop for 1 second. That's why the darkness is the secret place of God, because it's in the darkness is where you will meet God and see the light. But I'm going to warn you, there's other stuff creep around in the darkness. There's dark, evil spirits, and there's your own spirit creeping around in the darkness. But in Psalms 88, it says, "Let my prayer come before thee, incline thy ear unto my cry, for my soul is full of troubles, and my life draweth nigh unto the grave. I am counted with them that go down into the pit. I am as a man that hath no strength." And I'll tell you what, that's another part of walking the straight and narrow, preparing your mind, body, and spirit, is you got to be humbled. Your pride, your ego, your hubris. And it doesn't matter how big and badass you think you are. You're powerless, man, when it comes to the darkness. Yeah. And you know what? God, He actually, part of the darkness, the destruction and devastation that happens there is your own life. You'll be knocked down a peg, humbled, given an affirmity, man, just to give you clarity of your mind that you're not a god and you're not invincible. But Psalm 88 verse 5, free among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, whom thou rememberest no more, and they are cut off from thy hand. Thou hast laid me in the lowest pit, in the darkness, in the deeps. Thy wrath lied hard upon me, and thou hast afflicted me with all thy waves. Thou hast put away mine acquaintance far from me. Like God no longer knows you. You're in the land of Nod, when you're in the pit. Thou hast made me an abomination unto them. I am shut up, I cannot come forth. Mine eye mourneth for a reason of affliction. Lord, I have called daily upon thee. I have stretched out my hand unto thee. Wilt thou show wonders to the dead? Shall the dead arise? Praise thee. Shall thy loving kindness be declared in the grave, thy faithfulness in destruction? Shall thy wonders be known in the dark, and thy righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? Those people that are in the shadow, they've forgotten the glory of God. They don't acknowledge God. But unto thee I cried, O Lord, and in the morning shall my prayer prevent thee. Lord, why castest thou off my soul? Why hidest thou thy face from me? I am afflicted and ready to die from my youth. Up, while I suffer thy terrors, I am distracted. Thy fierce wrath goeth over me, thy terrors have cut me off. They came round about me daily like water. They compassed about me about together. Lover and friend hast thou put far from me, and mine acquaintance into darkness. And my friends, maybe you've already been into the pit. I have, After my divorce, I was in a pit of anger and self-pity. And that's what we're going to talk about as far as MINDFAST, preparing the way, which is your mind is a field, it grows stuff, seeds sprout up there, and what you need to do is cleanse it and get all the dark, evil stuff out of there. Seeds of doubt, seeds of despair. But Psalm 88, that number 88. Just looking at some other stuff. Proverbs 22, it talks about the strange woman whose mouth is a dark pit. She's the harlot, the prostitute. She's the woman, the sacred woman, the elevated woman who is believing the lie that Satan or mankind has thrown her way, elevating her on a pedestal and saying, we will worship you as a queen, But that's the strange woman to God. Her mouth is a pit. Ezekiel 28:8. The Assyrian, the proud Assyrian, the setter, is brought down to the pit. And of course, Job 3 and 4. In that one verse, it talks about if you're in the darkness, if you break a hedge. Job had a hedged-in existence. I use that all the time where I say, God bless you if you're in a bubbleized existence and you don't see none of the darkness, But it says, whoever breaks the hedge, a serpent will bite them, That's them putting a stumbling block in front of their brothers, opening up, someone that's just walking in the glory, and they all of a sudden cloud them up, with the darkness to the point where they can't see the glory no more. And that's part of, being a guide, being a teacher, is guiding people through the darkness, And Jesus is the ultimate shepherd, and it is his light and his love and his mercy and his compassion that shines to us and through all of us, to all those around us, lighting up the path that is before us. The children of Israel, when they went out into the wilderness and the Egyptians chased after them and they were filled with desire and lust to kill them all, God was the dark cloud, and from the front, it was a pillar of fire guiding them, but from the back, it was just darkness and confusion. The Egyptians couldn't see at all. They were blinded. But Job 3, he's talking about the day he was born. Job 3, verse 3. Let the day perish where I was born, and the night in which it was said, this is a man-child conceived. And everybody's talking about the man-child coming forth, But Job is saying, let that day perish. It's in the darkness. Let the day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let it light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of day terrify it. As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. There's no joyful voice therein. And Job is talking about the darkness. And, he says, why didn't I die out of the womb? Why did I even come out of my mother's belly and open my eyes? Because the earth is this dark pit. He goes, I should have lain still and been quiet and slept. I'd have been at rest. But the kings and counselors of the earth, which built desolate places, everything built by the hand of man is a waste of time. Or princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver. The wicked cease from troubling, and the weary are at rest. Kind of progressing on to Job 4. He talks about the blast of God. By the blast of God they perish. That's the wicked in the void. And by the breath of his nostrils they are consumed. The roaring lion and the voice of the fierce lion and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The old lion perishes. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when the deep sleep falleth on men. And we've read that several times in the Bible. Adam was put into a deep sleep. Jacob fell into a deep sleep. And every time they fell into that deep sleep, sometimes they were all right, but sometimes crazy things happened. They had to wrestle spirits, or they were terrified. Job, when he went into the darkness, it said, fear came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones shake. And then a spirit passed before my face, and the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before mine eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice saying, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his Maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. The fallen angels. How much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is the dust, and are crushed before the moth. They are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever, without ever regarding it. Doth not their excellency which is in them go away and die, even without wisdom? But Job, when he got into that darkness, I think he saw his own spirit. He might have seen an evil dark spirit, but I think he saw his own spirit. And when our eyes are open where we can see our own spirit, it's horrifying, because it's a dead corpse. It's filthy, stinking, filled with maggots. It's, I think I've seen people on YouTube have had a vision of seeing their true spiritual selves, how God sees us. But if you find the light, if you accept Jesus Christ, he cleans you up, gives you a white robe, and all of a sudden you're glorious. You're beautiful to look at. But likewise, I would say there's probably some dark spirits too. But that's part of the mystery of God, that's kind of hard to understand, as above, so below, but everybody wants to use their carnal thinking, the boxes, the 3D thinking, versus fourth dimensional thinking. It's kind of like Jesus said, if somebody slaps your one cheek, turn the other cheek and let them slap that one. It means be slow to anger, have patience, to do kind of the opposite of what our natural instincts are. But likewise, the darkness, that's where you find the light. That's where it shines most glorious, especially right before the daybreak, And the truth is, if you go into the darkness and you don't have God and Jesus Christ with you, you're going to be stumbling, bumbling in the wilderness like a drunken fool, But if you got God, the light of God, he will guide you, across the valley of death to the promised land. You will crash the beach and have a solid foundation to hang on to. The void also means like voiding something out. Like, say you're buying something at a store and you say, oh, I don't want that. And they're like, okay, I'll void this receipt. But void is also used to null and void wedding vows. And, vows in and of themselves, if you make a vow, that's 5088. The fallen angels made a vow to all stick together as they committed all the wickedness that they did. But once again, it's in Numbers 30, you get all this crazy stuff where it's talking about men making vows and then wives making vows. And it's all about the fathers and the husbands having the power over the women, where they can nullify their vows if that's what they want to do, Or if they stay silent, then the women's vows are in place and they can't, modify them. Personally, I think the Lord that is being talked about in Numbers 30 is not God and Jesus Christ, it's Satan. Sometimes when the Lord is mentioned, it's the dark prince of the world. And I just got done doing all the just living and talking about marriage and the dark side, the distortion vortex that is the whole marriage thing, where people want to think it's just this holy thing. And marriage really, there is a pure form of it, but it is, just like money, it tends to be darker. The darkness covers the earth, the void is also, the void is parar, which is breaking, frustrating, shattering, dividing. 922, bahu, is the empty waste. The Hebrew word six, abad, is perish, go astray, to be destroyed, to be put to death. The void place, goren. Hebrews 16:37, I believe. 37 is the number of folly. 16, 4x4. It's the threshing floor, the barn floor, to be made smooth. That's where judgment takes place. 50:10, na'ar, is to spurn, to abhor, to reject. Hebrew 26:38, chaser, lacking or needy. That's a void as well. Hebrews 73:87, rekan, vainly empty. Bakak, to empty, to devastate. Me bukwa, empty, void. Hebrews or Greek 40:03, bukwa, emptiness. Void of offense. That's actually a good thing. That's the Greek word aproskopos, which means the smooth road. There's no stumbling block. You're not led into sin. And that's found, I do believe, in the book of Acts. But that's when your mind is prepared. You're now walking in righteousness. You're not walking in self-righteousness, trying to live a perfect life under the law, because that's impossible. You're walking in righteousness, where you're just living in the Spirit, and the Spirit keeps you from being led into sin, and there's no stumbling block. Your path has been made smooth. Just kind of looking at all this, back in the Garden of Eden, as I said in my last video, part 6 of the Just Living, Adam's fall began way before Eve was ever brought online. Adam tried to blame Eve because by that point he was just really in a shadow, a weak shadow of what he should have been or could have been. And he was, when God said, what did you do? He said, the woman made me do it. But, as I showed, he had already made a choice to go down the carnal path. That's why God made him a whole pen, a helpmeet. But whether it was Adam or Eve, it doesn't much matter. But the serpent, is a spirit. It's the sinful nature. It could be your own self-will. It takes the form of a serpent. So whether it was Satan himself talking to Adam and Eve, or it was their own sinful nature, they had already opened the door to the darkness and to the shadow. So when Eve was hanging out in the garden, next thing you know, the serpent came along and twisted stuff up in her mind, confused her. And, the bottom line is she was using her own foolish pride and ego. She was looking at the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and she saw that it was pleasing, so she used her own fallible logic and said, well, it must be good to eat. And she totally forgot about what God had said. And she could have said, hey, hold on, before I even do anything, that the serpent, whether it was an actual physical serpent or just a spirit, a dark spirit that was talking in her mind, the minefield, if she'd been prepared, if she'd been ready, she would have minimally said, let me take this to God in prayer, and said, Lord God, what did you tell me about this tree? And God would have clarified stuff immediately, led her out of that dark hole. But instead she ate the apple and fell completely into the abyss. And Adam as well. So the MINDFAST is for those who are connected to the higher plane of thought and spirit. People who are soaring, flying in the glory and the power of the kingdom. A MINDFAST is a festival, a fest of evil, festering on evil, people who are stuck in the mud, who are sinking. It's the dark light or self-will. So, what you want to do to prepare, to make straight the path, to smooth it out, you might as well start today, 8-1. I've done some videos. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but there's one technique which is called binding up and loosing. You know, you bind up dark things, you know, like if you feel a emotion of hate, you say, you pray, you say, Heavenly Father, you know, bind up this feeling of hate I have, you know, in the name of your Son, you know, the power and glory of Jesus Christ, bind up the hatred, cast it out of my mind, body, and spirit, loose it into the earth, let it sink down and never bother me again. And boom, you know, your mind starts getting cleaned up. Just like a farmer, when he has a field and he wants to grow some crops, you know, you got to get the rocks out of the fields, the tree stumps, all the stuff, the bugs, whatever it is that's going to damage or hurt your crops, you know. So the minefield, I just want to touch on it, and then we're going to wrap up this first MINDFAST video. But when you do your MINDFAST, and that's going into the darkness, and let me backtrack a little bit. You know, we all end up going into the darkness, into the void, all of us. You know, when you go to sleep, that's going into the darkness. You know, and what you'll find is people that are on the shadow path, that are into evil, that go to sleep with all this negativity and darkness in them, they can't sleep because the darkness scares them. It's a scary place. They got demons coming out of the shadows, you know. But if you got a relationship with God, you're sleeping like a baby because the darkness is not scary at all, you know. There's nobody bugging you whatsoever. Jesus, you know, is right there guarding you the whole time. But in the minefield, there are giants to be killed, to be slayed. You know, some call them the 7 deadly sins, the cardinal sins. I think they're spirits, evil spirits. Lust, gluttony, which is overindulgence, greed, otherwise known as avarice, sloth, laziness, wrath, anger, envy, jealousy, and pride. And then there's all these emotions that are darkness within you. You know, hatred, bitterness, fear, anxiety, inadequacy, worry, paranoia. And then it manifests in things that you do. You know, when you're walking the shadow path, it's the sins you do. You know, adultery, fornication, discrimination, racism, self-gratification, lying, violence, rage, anger, stealing, murder, boasting, vanity, mischief. You know, just up to mischief. And, you know, the church, they even attached some demons to the 7 deadly sins. Lucifer, of course, controls pride. Mammon is greed. Asmodeus, lust. Leviathan, envy. Beelzebub, gluttony. Ammon, or Satan, wrath. Belphegor, sloth. Or Abaddon, sloth. But the point is that if you're carrying around skeletons, if you're carrying demons, baggage that you haven't addressed, and that's part of the whole repentance cycle. And, you know, the children of Israel, when they were led out into the wilderness by Moses, they started getting bitten by fiery serpents, which were their own sins, were killing them. And Moses put the serpents on the pole. The pole represents your 33 vertebrae, your spirit rising. But guess what? It's not your spirit rising. Your spirit should be snuffed out. You know, so if you're trying to elevate your own spirit, or you're trying to engage some other evil spirit, you're in trouble. Now, what you should be doing is God's going to pour His Spirit into you and fill you up like a jug of water, man. And that's the path you travel. You know, I kind of showed the diagram. But Moses, you know, when he took the children out there into the wilderness, they were being bit by the fiery serpents. So he put the serpents up on a brass pole, and when they looked at the serpents, they were healed. So that's why you got to go into the void, into the darkness, is because, you know, I used to have a website which was called The 4 Steps of Confrontation. But the first step was confront yourself, confront your own demons and skeletons, because you can't move on down the path, you know, the glory path, the straight and narrow, and prepare and make your mind right for God coming back to this world, because any of those skeletons you got or demons you're carrying are going to make you terrified and ashamed once God's footprint, and all you're going to see is a dark storm cloud of wrath and rage, and, it's not good. But if you have been walking down the path and letting God do his miracle of cleaning you up, rebuilding you, scrubbing you clean. For one, he gives you free forgiveness, free salvation. And he loves you freely with no conditions. You don't have to earn any of it. He's like, here, it's yours, man. That's how much God loves you. But you have to confront those spirits in the darkness as part of your growth path. You can't live in denial. So, one last little note, 8:11, MINDFAST. John 8:12, which is 8:12 is the day after 8:11, but in John 8:12, that's where Jesus says, I am the light of the world, leading you out of the darkness, And I do believe that's what's going to come into play in a powerful, powerful way come 8:11, 8:12. And, like I said, 9/11 is only 30 days out. The comet Ison is going to make its appearance. So, I'm going to try and put out the details of the MINDFAST, how to go about doing it. One of the concepts is going to be to not talk on 8/11. To just meditate, to try and get into the void, and especially saying, God, bring forth anything that is in me that is not of you. Any darkness, any skeletons, any demons, any baggage I got, bring it forth, let me look at it, so I can address it, So, that's what we're going to try and do. Get everybody ready for the MINDFAST. No talking on MINDFAST Day. I think I'm going to ask everybody, if you're going to participate in MINDFAST, to maybe do a video, 30 seconds to 1 minute long. No talking. You can just sit there and look at the camera, and title it, My MINDFAST, and let your eyes and your face do all the talking. But what you should be doing is just trying to receive from God, receive the truth, and let him shine the light on all the dark places within your mind. And then you will be prepared, and you will be uplifted with the Spirit of God, and the wind will be put into your sails, and you will be prepped and ready to burst through, to be set free from the void, and to crash the beach on the other side, my friends. All right, man, there's other things we do. I want to just close this out, but, like those 7 deadly sins, like lust, like I say, to people, hey man, if you keep going to a porn site, and you keep having lust, well then, God's not working with you, because your brain doesn't seem to have the ability to discern that if you would stop going to that porn site, all those lustful thoughts would stop festering in your mind, But, God, he gives us affirmity, to help us with our pride. And there's that phrase, gird thy loins. That's to help you with lust, and I'll get into that in a little more detail. But there's kind of like an opposite of girding your loins, which is letting loose your loins. Or in the book of Nahum 2 verse 10, it talks about the pain in the loins, the blackness, the dubious, the glowing heat, the glorifying yourself, adorning yourself. The foolish emperor putting on the invisible clothes, thinking that you got some royal robe on and you're just a fool walking around naked. So, hey, this is Operation End Times. Hopefully, you got something out of this, but we're going to continue this march down into the valley of death, into the void, into the darkness, for self-realization, for illumination, for growth, for preparation, for making straight and smooth the path, and for preparing the way in our minds to see God face to face, my friends. All right, I'm Ben Hellstead, your Jedi warrior for Jesus. God bless you all out there. Get ready, man. It's going to be a roller coaster ride into the void. It's where the waters collide. You know, if you got the light in you shining up that path, you will see the beach, and when the wind blows, you will crash the shore, my friends, in the bow of the ship. Make your foundation your rock, and then prepare to slay all the giants you find in the land of milk and honey. All right, God bless you all.